Do you need encouragement to turn tragedies into your own triumphant life story? If so, this podcast is for you. Listen to powerful guests who have persevered through challenges so you can gain strength to build your championship life. The host of Professor of Perseverance podcast, Dr. James Purdue.
Hey, come on in now. Let's go. Let's get started here. Let's get all fired up. Let's learn something. Let's get encouraged. Let's get some hope. And then not only all this, motivation and inspiration, let's use what we can to help someone else down the line. We all know someone that's struggling, someone's going through something, and they need help. And you know what's good about that? They're going to come back and help you in the future because life happens unexpectedly. Definitely when we're not ready for it, but it happens. All right, hey, I'm Dr. James Purdue. Welcome to the Professor of Perseverance podcast. Today's topic, we're going to talk about confidence. How confidence can get you where you need to be, and how low self-confidence may not get you in a place where you like to be. Our guest today, right about the age of 23, he'd already filed bankruptcy and had a divorce, and at one point was attempting to take his own life. Wow. So that's a story right there to start off with. And today, he is very happily married, got a life worth living for. He's going to share with us and how you can get this better, higher confidence level so you can have the same thing. Brine Hamilton, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. Glad to be on, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity.
Oh, no. I told people, I said that one of the reasons I do this is there's more alternative motives than what I got, but it's main thing is provide a platform from other people and get their message out, because I know people are tired of hearing my message. And so I'm trying to help uplift other people, and this is the way I can do this. So, and again, appreciate you sharing with us and spending some of your valuable time with us today.
Absolutely.
All right, so Brine, like a nine, Brine. All right, let me see here. Now, let's go ahead, get started here. Let's get into your story. Before then, you talking about having a low self-esteem in your adulthood, and with well, I say low self-esteem and confidence. All right. Do you think it developed as a child, younger? Did you have that when you were growing up? And second part of the question, can you pinpoint how that happened, if that's the possibility here?
Yeah, I do think I have a little bit of insight as to how that happened. So, yeah, and it would go back to childhood. I think, and it's funny because I had a very similar conversation earlier today. But it all started, I think, when I was in elementary school. We lived in an area in Toronto where it was a very diverse population. I was, again, really early years of school, so it's all I had really known. But then we moved. My dad worked really hard to get us into a better neighborhood, get us into our own house out of community housing. And, the area that I went to, there was not nearly as much diversity. So there was after the first year being there, the only other, there was another black family. They had moved away, and I became not only the only black kid, but the only minority in the entire school, a K-8 school. So that was interesting in itself. Going from a very diverse population to a not diverse population. So I already stood out like a sore thumb, as the saying goes.
I can say that being going one or the other way, that could be a very positive thing where people were interested to find out, not to say what a colored or black man or child would be like, not saying that, but instead of talking to the same old white person, let me go talk to and you know what I'm saying? So it can either go good or go bad. I wouldn't think there'd be a medium. I wouldn't think.
I don't know. I could see maybe a medium, but for me, it was it was the latter of the two. It wasn't a great experience at all, especially early on. I struggled with. I had, I don't know if maybe because of the time, but I always say, like, if I was born 10, 15 years later, I probably would have been diagnosed with ADHD, or at least ADD. But I definitely struggled in school, and it really stood out there. So that first year that I was there, it came midway through the school year, I got held back. and I'm 6'3". At the time, I wasn't above average size, but I did have a bit of a growth spurt. So you keep in mind, I'm the only minority in this entire school. I'm already, I'm having some struggles learning as it is. I'm a year older than everybody else now, and I'm bigger than everybody else. Like I was, I ended up being bigger than everybody my age. So having that year being held back really made me stand out. So yeah, there were definitely. I think that was a little bit of where it came from, but I think that was where a lot of my struggles with confidence, because I just didn't feel smart. I again got held back for a year, and I was kind of the, for lack of a better explanation, probably like the big stupid kid in the class who stood out.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah. Now go ahead.
and I
I
was going to say
just I can
also,
see that.
we did struggle financially. So there were other reasons. Like I had a bike that was way too small for me for a couple of years. So I got made fun of a lot whenever I rode my bike. So there were a lot of things there. And then just the whole experience of, I would say I definitely experienced racism during that time. So all of those
Okay.
things would make you feel like less of a person, I think.
I would agree with you, yes. And so, with the you mentioning that, I would think a big key. I mean, I understand you may have went through. I would imagine some bullying during that time. Again, the racism with that, and those in itself would affect your learning. And because you're so concentrated to get away from the other stuff that you neglect your own education because you're trying to get away from all that other junk, and you're concentrating so much on it. I can see where your education could lack due to that.
Well, I definitely, there was some bullying, but also at the same time, conversely, I did become a very good fighter. I did get into a lot of fights, right up until they added this. It was when I was in grade 4, they implemented the zero tolerance rule, where you got suspended automatically if you got into a fight. And I wasn't as worried about getting suspended because I hated school at the time, but I was worried about going home to my dad and telling him that I got suspended. So that was kind of where it stopped. And we had moved again, and I had switched to a school that was more conducive to me. Anyways, I ended up being much better in school, and it's just really actually made a lot of progress from the year over year.
There you go, awesome. And I've never been a fan of this zero tolerance in school because if I'm protecting myself, I shouldn't be punished for it, especially if I've already reported it to a teacher and then still nothing was done. So yeah, of course now I got to admit I was never suspended from school. My older brother and younger brother, who you would have thought would never get suspended, they did. People thought I would be, but I didn't at that time. So yeah, but I've never been fond of the zero tolerance. All right, now you've gone through your school years. You get into college. Again, your stage 23 was divorce and stuff. And so how did I mean? Did you marry early? Did you get trapped up into the finance, and then how did all that?
Yeah, so I guess what I'll say is I had both parents. I was the youngest of 6 kids in total. I was the one child that my parents had together, and they were married for they were married before I was born. They were married for the first 20 years of my life, give or take, and then they got a divorce. At that same time, I was getting married, and I was, although there were some things that should have made it obvious to me that it wasn't going to be a good fit, and we probably shouldn't have taken that step. I just kind of ignored that, and I was determined in my mind to make my marriage successful, because my parents weren't able to do it after doing it for so long. So yeah, again, and I'm not going to criticize the other person. That's not fair to do.
Yes.
But it definitely, obviously things didn't work out, and at the same time, I was already having some financial struggles, so I ended up declaring bankruptcy during the time that we were married. Um, but it was mainly just because of bad decisions, probably overextending myself, helping people when I wasn't in a position to do so, and again, looking back on it with hindsight, they probably weren't in a position to repay
Mm.
what I was offering as assistance. So yeah, I did dig myself a bit of a hole. So yes, by again in that all within that 1 year, yeah, I had filed for bankruptcy, I guess, the previous year, and then was going through the divorce at age 23. So again, just really really tight financial situation. I was driving a Toyota Tercel that had indicators that didn't work, so I had done a lot of the repairs on the car myself. I was doing hand signals. It just wasn't an ideal spot to be in.
There you go. love is such a strange animal, a strange creature. You know, love makes us do goofy things. Love is blind. Love is, and so, but I mean, you can't throw it out on love and everything. So, I mean, you like I said, you want to try to make it work because your parents did for their 20 plus years, and so yeah, that's commendable that you tried and everything like that. All right, so then got down the rabbit hole financially, and that took some confidence away. The divorce, again, feeling like a failure, I'm sure, took some more confidence away. And you had contemplated ending your life. So, not that we're glad you're here. We're glad you did not, go down that rabbit hole and do anything. Okay, but can you think off the top of your head, or was there a reason why you didn't attempt? Did something go? I mean, some people may say, I know my religious belief says, no, you can't do it, even though I was thinking about it, but I couldn't do it for that. Or I had a woman on my show one day, and she said that she was contemplating suicide, and the reason she didn't do it was her 2 and 4 year old. She just couldn't leave them behind, and she thanked them for keeping her alive.
Yeah, so for me, it was again, it was during this time I was on a long drive home from work. It wasn't that long; it's probably like a 30-minute commute. But when you're alone with your thoughts, it feels like a long time. So it was during that time there was just this one night where I contemplated just driving my car off the road. Like I was just thinking about the debt that I had gotten myself into, and when I look back at it, it really wasn't even that much. Some hard work I could have probably gotten myself out of the situation, but again, hindsight's 2020. And then going through a divorce as well, it was like I just felt like I was at rock bottom. My life couldn't get any worse, and I was just under. It was just the stress of it and just the burden of it. It was just so heavy, and I was like, if I just I can just end this all and just not have to deal with this anymore. Now, to answer your question as to what it was that made me not do it, there's a couple of things because again, I had a conversation that was very similar earlier today, and part of it was just my logical mind because I was thinking, I had heard stories of people who had attempted and not been successful. And my thought was, well, if I actually do this and I don't end things, I'm not going to have a car anymore. I'm going to have another problem now. And I'm not going to be able to get to work, and it's just going to make things worse. And, I could potentially hurt myself and, things not be over, but it could be damaged for life. So there was that. I got thinking about some family, my friends, and that was kind of what stopped me at that point. It
Yeah,
was
yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah, it was that low point. And yeah, I guess that was so to answer your question, it was really just thinking of those other folks and thinking of if I wasn't successful, it just kind of add to the list of my failures to that point. But also
Well,
it just
yeah,
created a
you
new
think
issue for me.
you're thinking, like you said, all this going through your head, the stress, burden, and everything. And if I'm not successful with suicide, what if I mangle myself and now I've lost an arm or a leg or paralyzed, or now I made things worse that I could live through. And so, yeah, I'll go ahead and tell you that I am a three-time, don't say loser, but winner at attempting suicide and surviving. I wanted out of here so bad. I attempted three times in 3 days, and the last time they found me sucking carbon monoxide out of my van, and someone found me. They got me to the hospital, put me in a hyperbaric chamber, forced the carbon monoxide out of my body and oxygen into my body, as I was in the hospital for 7 weeks. And so then living through a suicide attempt, they make you see a psychologist or a psychiatrist. And so meeting with him is, of course, it's been 10, 12 years ago, end up leading why we're doing this podcast today. He said, you got a message, you need to get out there, you need to help other people. And so who knew what a podcast was 12 years ago? I didn't. But it eventually led to where we're at today. So we're glad that you were able to be more rational than I was at that time. So, all right. So now you decide can't do this. It's not going to be worth the cause to do this. So, what helped you build your confidence level up? Because you're talking about being a happily married man now. Life is going great, moving right along. And so, what from that point on? What do you think helped you get this confidence level back up? What did you do?
Yeah, so I guess a big part of it was, when my focus shifted, a lot of my life had been focused on proving people wrong. Like, whether it was teachers, whether it were, folks early on, coaches, whatever. My motivation until a few years ago when I had a lot of people end up having some success in my career and people were behind me. Right up until then, my motivation has always been just proving people wrong. If somebody said I couldn't do something, I was determined to go out and do it. So, I had kind of taken that. I guess it was a conversation with myself, really. It's like, I had to prove that my life was worth living. So that was a part of it. Also, a big part of it was at that time, I really started exploring my faith more seriously. And again, that was another motivating factor for me as well. Now, the thing that's interesting about my story is I only really started talking about this probably less than 2 years ago.
Hmm.
This had happened. I had this thought. I very seriously considered taking that step to end my life, but I never shared that with anyone. I only really shared it with my wife and my best friend recently. So prior to that, there's no discussion about it. I just kind of put it behind me. I think there was even a point where I don't know if consciously or subconsciously, I just, it was almost as if it didn't happen until I was reflecting one day and I realized like, oh, I really almost, I really
Yeah,
almost
yeah,
did that.
yeah. No, I can understand what you're saying there because my family knew, of course, people knew in the community once the word got around and everything like that. But
Hmm.
I can understand why you would put it back in your subconscious, forget about it as much as possible, because the stigma of people that attempt suicide, all of a sudden people are hollering, "Man, he was crazy." Crazy people commit suicide, and it's not that. It's people that are hurting, people that wants the pain to quit. They
Yeah,
want the burden to be lifted. And then of course if you live through it, then people, so, like I said, you got to see a psychiatrist or a psychologist. Then people give the stigma, man, they're crazy. They're seeing a psychiatrist. No, I tell people, and I haven't really hidden mine. When I lived, I've been telling, and it's part of my story. It's part of my life. Same thing with you. I would encourage you because you're going to help somebody else that's been down that rabbit hole of thinking, and so how you can get out of it to help them is what you're going to be doing. And so, but I tell people, what are we supposed to, we've been told all our life to exercise 20 to 30 minutes a day, do something to get your body moving. Well, we need to exercise our mind as well. I
absolutely.
mean, so when we go and see a psychiatrist, psychologist to help empty out that trash that's in our mind, is no different than going to a regular doctor and help emptying out the cholesterol to get your heart healthier, to get some lungs healthier, get your circulation healthier. It's no different. But the stigma that it was placed on it, people can look at it.
No, absolutely. I think for me, it was really about finding some sort of purpose because, again, originally my plan was to get married, have a family, live the traditional life. But when I was getting a divorce, I just didn't see that as a possibility at the time. So it's like, what is my purpose now? I didn't really feel like there was a purpose. But yeah, I think if you have a purpose, it's going to give you motivation to keep going.
Oh yes, yes, yes. You got a purpose, and especially I would like to add into that if you have a purpose where you're, helping other people as well. I mean, it's
Absolutely.
great to have a purpose to have the best life possible for you, but we've got to be able to help the other people out there, and so that really will bring you out of that rabbit hole. Once you see that you've helped someone else and know the good feeling of that. So now, do you think being young when you got married to where you're at today, I don't know your age now, but do you think that maybe you were just immature
Oh, I think
compared to
that
now because you've grown up and learned a lot since then, and so do you think maybe you were just immature? Maybe that's not the only thing, but the immature, the low self-esteem, low confidence.
Yeah, I would say definitely immaturity was a part of it. It was 16 years ago, so I'd be remiss to say if I didn't feel immature looking at myself 16 years back. I haven't grown as a person, but no, I definitely think that was a part of it, immaturity. And again, I think part of being mature would have been recognizing getting into that situation that this there are some really obvious things here that should tell you that this isn't going to work, and ignoring that. I think being more mature now, that's not something that if I had that again, hindsight's 2020, but understanding the long term consequences, I probably wouldn't have. taking that step. There was actually a point where we almost called it off, and we decided not to. And it was more, part of it I think was more embarrassment, even though,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
the whole the whole idea, you know, and again, it's very flawed thinking, because it's, again, if you're embarrassed that you call off a wedding, you know, how embarrassing is it when you get divorced, you know, a year
Yeah.
and a half
Yeah.
later?
There you go. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Again, it goes back to the maturity level and the anxious, and like I said, it's the embarrassment and feeling of disappointment to other people. Looking from there. So I've never been married, so I can't get on all that going on. So yes, I've never been married. So all right, I'm going to stop here just for a second to let you know I'm trying to do it. Nine, Brian. All right. So it's nine, just like nine, Brian. Okay. Man, you got a good radio voice. You ought to do some podcasting or radio or something. You got a good voice.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I have been taking advantage of it with a couple of podcasts. So that's been, you know, that's one of the things that I do in my spare time, and I do really enjoy it, much like I'm sure you do as well.
Go ahead and tell us your podcast names. What are the Miranda? What are they? Just go ahead and jump into there for a second.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's three of them. So the first two are focused on what I spent most of my career doing, which is healthcare security. So that's the security teams that work within hospitals and just healthcare facilities in general. And I mean, like, physical, like the security officers that you see in the hospital. So my first two podcasts catered to that audience. So the individuals who work in those security officer roles, up to, you know, managers, supervisors, directors, uh, chief security officers, those individuals. So that's who they're catered for. But the first one is the healthcare security cast, which I've been doing for more than a year and a half now. We're 118 episodes in, and again, we hit on a broad number of topics to really just, again, the idea when I first started was for me to learn and share those learnings with other people. And so far, it's been well received, and I think a lot of people are benefiting from it. So I continue to do that. Really love having those conversations and love sharing that content. And then my guest on episode 3 of that podcast is a guy named Mike Hodges. So Mike Hodges and I, we teamed up to do a second podcast that is focused on workplace violence in healthcare. So we've been doing that one. It'll be a year on September 15th. We'll be celebrating 1 year of that. We do that one monthly. So it's that one's the Proactive Security Podcast. It was kind of birthed from Mike. He started the Proactive Security blog, and we kind of, you know, the idea was to kind of take what he's doing and combine what I was doing, and make the Proactive Security Podcast. And then the last one, so I spent a long time talking about security, healthcare security related topics, and I would just want to have conversations with other people and just interview unique people and share their stories. And I told my wife about this, and, you know, the idea of, she sees how much time goes into doing this in the evenings and at night, and she thought, okay, he wants to do a third podcast. Maybe there's something that we can do together here. So that was kind of what she pitched to me. She's like, let's do something together. And so that was where Disrupt the Everyday was born.
All right,
So
you and the wife tag teaming. All right.
yeah, no, it's a lot of fun, and I have someone to help with editing and getting everything in the back end done, all the post production. So that's huge, because it gives us something that we can actually do together, which again frees up more time, because it's not just me by myself doing all of it. So that's really helpful. And the thing I love about it is that we have two different perspectives, and we get to both share our perspectives and ask questions and have conversations with people, you know, from both a husband and wife perspective. And, you know, we have a great synergy together, and you know, I think it's even strengthened our relationship, being able to work together in this way. And it's been a great experience. But what we kind of focus on there is, we hit on a broad number of topics. So we talk about parenting, relationships, finances, really anything you can think of, real estate investing. So we cover a bunch of topics. The idea is that hopefully, if somebody comes to our website or looks up our podcast, they do a search on something that they either want to learn about or that they're struggling with, and we'll be able to help them, and, you know, at least give them a high level understanding of something, and then they'll have an expert or professional that they can follow up if they need to learn more information.
There you go. Awesome. That's cool. And so
Thank you.
yeah, I love it that the wife is joined in. So that's good. So all right, now let's go back and we'll come back and get your. I'll get those three podcasts, and I'll link them below for anybody
Sounds good.
that's coming in to replay and listening, and they can find it. And if they're interested, they can just click on the links and come find you. And I'll get those in there later. And so
Sounds good.
now then, let me ask if you could give maybe two or three advice, some tips on how you were able to grow and mature the confidence level. How could you help the listeners with a couple of tips?
So again, it's just finding purpose, finding purpose for yourself, and I can kind of crystallize this down to 3 points, and I think this is something that applies both in your personal life and professional life. So you can use these principles as three principles, and they're just kind of, in my opinion, they're universal. They apply across both spectrums. But the first thing is learning, just having some kind of focus to learn. So for me, one of the things, and I'm going to fast forward a few years here, but I apply this for career development. I guess I'll use personal and professional examples. So my personal example was I wanted to, I was getting involved in my faith, and I wanted to learn more. I wanted to learn more about God. So I spent a lot of time reading the Bible and just trying to learn in that sense. From a professional standpoint, when I first decided I wanted to grow in my career, one of the things I focused on was public speaking, because it was, again, when you talk about self confidence and struggling with self confidence, the last thing you probably want to do is be in front of a big crowd, sharing, trying to share knowledge, especially when you don't feel like you're an intelligent person. So that was something I had to really work on. But I knew that I was going to have a struggle with that. It was going to be something that took a long time. So I had a purpose behind it, because it wasn't something that I was going to do overnight. I spent a little bit of time each day just trying to get better at the skill. And over time, the efforts accumulated, and I've been comfortable speaking in front of people. So that was a big step for me. But learning is huge. The second piece is just building relationships. And if you're thinking from a professional standpoint, networking is the buzzword, but I always just take it back to relationship building, because that's what it is at the end of the day. So just without having your own interests, just trying to connect with people, meeting interesting people, because I can't speak for anyone else, but I think there's nothing better than just meeting interesting people and, bringing those people into your life. And you never know where those relationships are going to lead. Who you're going to meet through those people, how you can help them, and how that's going to benefit you, because helping people also is something that's going to make you feel better. If you do something, and you alluded to this earlier, if you have an impact on somebody, there's nothing like getting a message from somebody, or an email from somebody, or a call from somebody saying that you shared something that helped them. So the relationship building, again, both professionally and personally, because you never know where those relationships are going to go, or going to lead. I think every job that I've had, the last probably at least 7 jobs that I've had, I it's all been through people that I've known. That's how I found out about the opportunities, and kind of fast tracked on those. But again, you just knowing people, you don't know, when once you meet somebody, if you have a good relationship, you have access to their connections as well, the people that they know, and they're going to be willing to help you out. Like sometimes, and again, it just comes out of conversation. Sometimes you might be struggling with something, and you share this with a friend, and they say, "Oh, I know this person. Let me introduce you. They'll be able to help you out." So you never know where those are going to lead. So just again, learning, building relationships, and then the last thing is mentorship, which it's easy to look at the practical professional variation of that, but even in your personal life, if you want to get better at something, or if you want to teach somebody from your learnings, you have the opportunity to do that in any area of life. It doesn't have to be in your career. You may, for myself, I want to be a great father. If I know somebody who's a father of 6, they have children, with a huge age range, I want to learn from them. I want to know what they've done to be successful as a parent, and as a husband, right? So it's not just necessarily about those professional things. You can learn anything from a number of people. There's so many people who have a level of expertise much greater than ours, and it's in the everyday things. So a mentor doesn't even necessarily need to know that you're learning from them. Mentors can be formal or informal. So those informal mentors, those people who are just kind of getting it done every day, you can learn even just from their example. And mentors don't have to be perfect. They don't have to do everything right, but someone who knows how to do something very well that you want to be good at, you can definitely learn from them. So just take advantage of that. And if you can teach somebody else something, again, those there's the old adage, when you teach something, when you teach something, what's the saying? I'm going to butcher it here, but you teach someone something, you learn it twice. So again,
We
it's
we
going
don't
to
call it
strengthen your skill set.
butchering. We don't call it butchering. We call it paraphrasing.
Yeah, there we go. I like that. I may borrow
or
that later.
You can take it all you want to. Hey, now with the learning, yeah, learning whether you're reading books or audio books, talking to other people again could be your mentor, your networking. The
Yeah.
learning opens up a world that you never even thought of, because we're only used to what we're used to.
Yeah.
And if somebody else is talking about what's going on the other side of the world, and you go, "What? Well, that sounds interesting." And then, yeah, learning. I'm all for that. That opening that mind can take you places that you've never even thought of. All right. And then you talk about networking. I think it was Zig Ziglar. I think was one that says if you help out enough people, you eventually get what you want.
Yeah. Yeah. If you
They'll
help enough
help
people get what
you.
they want,
Yeah.
they'll eventually help you get what you want. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the last one with mentoring. And so, learn from others. Okay, learn from them because they've already been down the road. I don't care if it's in a cancer situation, spinal cord injury, business, whatever. They've been down the road before you. And so they can teach you. Then you become a mentor to someone to help them get along.
Yeah. Well, I'll say too. Since we're quoting people, I think it was Ralph Waldo Emerson. Hopefully, I get this one right. But if it was him, what the quote was is, "Every man is my superior in something." So it doesn't matter who it is that you meet, even if it's a small child. There's something that you can learn from them. There's something they know that you don't, or something that they know better than you that you can learn from. So even, when I go back to my days doing frontline security, there were a lot of times where I interacted with individuals who had, maybe come into our hospital under the influence of, different substances, or, people who lived on the street. But just sometimes having conversations with those individuals, and learning their perspective, learning where they come from, even if you don't learn something specifically from their experiences, you learn how to communicate with people. You learn how to just have respect for everybody, no matter who they are. So there's so many lessons that we can learn from each other, and I don't think we take enough advantage of that.
Well, even like you're talking about, the ones that are addictive that come in, or the not so good people that enter your life, you learn something from them, at least how to avoid that next time. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, if nothing else, how to avoid it next time. So, all right, Brian, there we go, trying to get it right for you. And
I
so,
appreciate
hey,
it.
we're talking with Brine Hamilton. Okay, again, talking about how he brought his courage on up from when he was younger to where he's at today, to a happy married life stood at hood that he enjoys now. So, all right, hey, we appreciate you being on here. If you can go ahead and give us your social media in case anybody wants to reach out and find you and touch you and talk with you, get some mentoring from you, how can they go about that?
Yeah. So the good thing about having a name that's misspelled is that it's very easy to get all of your social media handles that you want. So if you search Brine Hamilton on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, it's at Brine Hamilton. Instagram is at Brine Hamilton. My podcast page is at disrupt underscore the underscore everyday. So they're both, my name and the title of the podcast are both pretty unique. So if you search either one, I'm pretty easy to find. But I'm on, the major social media platforms, and that's Brine, Brine. Again, I have a great grandmother who filled out my dad's birth certificate. She wrote Brian the way she said it with her accent, and it came out Brian. So my dad passed it on to me, but it's been good for getting emails and social media, that's for sure.
There you go, awesome. And again, the old just Google him, and then they had to get you somewhere into place anyway. So, hey, Brian, hey, if you don't mind finishing up here, that we know there's people struggling out there, people are hurting, and if you can leave us with a positive message to help them get through today, that would be a blessing, man.
Yeah, absolutely. What I would say is, no matter what you're going through, it's it's finite. Any struggle that you have, even though it doesn't feel like it when you're in it, it is going to end at some point. You just have to, again, we talk about some of the things that you can do to get help, whether it's talking to a professional, whether it's just finding someone that you can confide in. It doesn't even necessarily have to be a professional, but a lot of times when we just talk about the burdens, it you're going to feel different. You're going to feel a bit of a release, but just taking positive steps every day with some kind of purpose. If you can find what your purpose is, and move towards it every day, even just a little bit of progress each day accumulates over time. So, whatever it is that makes you, whatever it is that's making you feel like that your life isn't worth living, just trust that it is. There's somebody, you mean something to somebody. And, if you can't find the strength to press on for yourself, find someone else that you can press on for.
Amen, brother. There we go. Yes. So find a reason to do something. And remember, today's purpose may not be the rest of your life purpose. We change because of these surroundings around us. My life purpose when I was younger, I wanted to be a professional athlete. And then when I got my neck broke playing football, I guess my purpose changed since I couldn't play sports anymore. And so then, I got a service dog and purpose of helping him and raise money for them. And you may go through cancer, then you want to help out with the Cancer Society and funds and things. So whatever today's purpose may be your lifelong. I mean, look at Mother Teresa. And so, but more than likely, you're going to have 4 or 5 different ones throughout your life, maybe even more than that. So just enjoy life, do the best you can, encourage people, help other people, and you'll find out it's all worth living for. Brine, thank you again for being here, and we'll get all this social media put down for others to come back and get. Hey, if you're on the replay here, again, you don't have to be 23, go through a divorce and bankruptcy to be able to get this message out. You don't have to be a spinal cord injury like me. Again, the message of providing hope and moving on, letting you know that life is worth living is the message the same. So be able to share this out with someone else. All right, everybody else, do something today, tomorrow, something next week that's going to help you persevere past your paralysis.